Young Cairo, stuck at their Tennessee home while her lawyer parents travel for work, finds comfort in putting pen to paper. Even though she's all alone, she goes to school every day, rocking a mini skirt and heels even on her walk through the woods. At school, she meets Mr. Miller, a middle-aged teacher who once dreamed of being a writer but didn't quite make it. Despite the big age gap, Mr. Miller becomes a kind of father figure to Cairo, while she secretly thinks he's pretty cool. One day, Cairo gets to class early. Mr. Miller suggests she read ahead for the class, surprised to find out she's already finished all 12 books. They chat about books until Winnie, Cairo's friend who has to repeat Mr. Miller's class, shows up. Winnie asks Cairo to hang out after school. The girls leave, and Mr. Miller, curious about Cairo's taste in books, checks them out. Suddenly, his buddy Boris bursts in, grabs a book, and starts reading a super inappropriate part out loud. Mr. Miller tries to shut him down, but Boris keeps going. Then Boris spots a book Mr. Miller wrote himself and is shocked to see Cairo had it. Back home, Mr. Miller finds his wife, Beatrice, buried in work. He tries to talk to her, but she's swamped. He calls her later, all excited that a student read his book. While they're talking, Beatrice's co-worker, Amy, calls with something urgent. After the call, Mr. Miller tries to flirt with Beatrice over the phone, and they plan to have drinks together. Things are getting steamy when, guess what? Amy calls again just as they're about to get close, leaving Mr. Miller totally bummed. The next day, Jonathan whines to Boris about his weekend, moaning about how Amy messed up his romantic night with Beatrice. Boris pokes fun at him and starts blabbing about his own life. Suddenly, they spot Cairo walking out of the woods. Jonathan, still peeved, glares as she comes closer. Cairo, clueless about the tension, gives them a big hello. Feeling all riled up, Jonathan tries to act cool and chats with her normally. When Winnie pretends to accidentally drop her stuff, Boris sees right through it and calls her out for trying to flirt with him. Cairo notices this and tells Winnie she's pretty bold. Winnie tries to give Cairo some boring essay ideas, but Cairo thinks they're lame. Then, out of nowhere, Winnie suggests hot teachers as a topic. Cairo's confused because of the age difference, but Winnie, being a tease, tells her it's no big deal. She even pushes Jonathan on Cairo, saying he seems nice and wouldn't scare her on a first date. At first, Cairo isn't sure, but Winnie's playful prodding makes her even more curious. Winnie keeps messing with Cairo, mentioning how Jonathan keeps staring at her, which makes Cairo blush. Over time, Cairo gets more and more interested in sex. The desire keeps building, and she can't stop thinking about finally experiencing it. In class, she can't help but steal glances at Jonathan, totally digging him. Then, one day, Jonathan sneaks up on her and whispers for her to meet him in his office after class. In his office, Jonathan chats with Boris and invites him for dinner with his wife. Boris says yes, and they all have a blast dancing before Boris heads out. Cairo catches Jonathan dancing, and once Boris leaves, Jonathan tries to copy his moves. They end up laughing together. The teacher chats with Cairo. He likes their bond and asks about Cairo's living situation. He's also impressed by her writing skills, especially how she remembered some lines from her work. Recognizing her talent, he throws down a challenge: write a short story like your favorite author, and ace the class if you nail it. Cairo jumps at this chance. Suddenly, Cairo stuns the teacher by admitting she's read his books. She quotes a passage, mirroring how she memorized lines from her own writing. He's thrilled, especially because it's his first book, one that holds a special place in his heart. Cairo thinks he's lacking inspiration and encourages him to get the writing juices flowing again. He invites her to meet that weekend to brainstorm the story. At their meeting spot, they're interrupted by Jonathan, who joins their conversation. He mentions their shared journey of honing their writing skills as a poet named Elliot performs. Cairo steals glances at Jonathan's focused face. Later, they critique Elliot's poems, smoking and sharing their opinions. Cairo offers Jonathan a cigarette, which he takes. Back at school, Cairo has a makeover. She brings coffee to Boris and Miller, and the vibe is cool. They're cracking jokes and sharing a smoke. Cairo tells Winnie that the teacher didn't comment on her new look, but she's sure he liked it. She then reveals to Miller that she wants to write her story in the style of Henry Miller, a writer known for spicy topics. Miller frets it might cause problems, but Cairo thinks it'll add a kick. Jonathan gets a text from his wife about a weekend getaway. Cairo approaches him about her story, but distracted by his wife's message, he gives a quick thumbs up without much thought. Alone with Winnie, Cairo is playfully teased about trying to charm the teacher. Winnie exaggerates Cairo's actions, making them both laugh. While Jonathan helps frantic Cairo find her lost phone, she accidentally shoved it in his back. His wife grows annoyed about their delayed weekend trip. Despite the rain, Jonathan offers to return the phone, and things get steamy when he sees Cairo looking gorgeous in a dress, drenched from the downpour. They lock lips in a passionate kiss, and Jonathan can't stop thinking about Cairo days later. Suddenly snapped back to reality by Cairo accidentally sending him his own test, Jonathan sees his wife's frustration and leaves for his writing shed. There, he prints Cairo's finished story, a grown-up type of tale that gets him hot and bothered as he reads, picturing Cairo in every scene. Overcome by desire, Jonathan gives in to his urges. The next day, Cairo arrives in a revealing outfit, but Jonathan acts distant. Sensing trouble, Cairo asks if something's wrong. Turns out, he's not a fan of the spicy content in her writing. Even though Cairo claims she didn't write it, Jonathan shuts down her explanations. He rejects both her work and their connection, which upsets Cairo. She calls his own writing boring and insists he's just jealous. Jonathan sticks to his guns, insisting they're just teacher and student. Cairo, furious, throws a tantrum and leaves her story with the school principal. Back home, Jonathan complains about his crazy day to his wife, mentioning Cairo and her story. His wife, surprisingly, becomes curious about the story, leading to a heated argument that somehow drags their friend Boris into it. Meanwhile, Cairo drowns her sorrows in drinks with her friend Winnie after getting shot down by Miller. As the night goes on and they get tipsy, they playfully take embarrassing photos to mess with Boris, just for laughs. Suddenly, Jonathan's phone rings with the principal on the other end. Beatrick passes him the phone, and he hears accusations of him being too close to Cairo. Jonathan denies it completely and assures Beatrick it's a lie. But Beatrick warns him things could get ugly, he could lose his job and even his wife if it's true. The next day, Cairo skips class for a meeting with the principal, while Jonathan keeps teaching, probably thinking about Cairo. Jonathan acts like nothing's wrong, refusing to talk about it while Cairo's plan unfolds. He gets called to the office for a chat with the school bosses. They grill both Cairo and Professor Miller, asking about their interactions in class and if they ever hung out outside of school. Cairo's answers make it sound like they were more than just teacher and student. The principal decides to suspend Jonathan. When he gets home, Beatrick can tell something's up, but he brushes it off, saying he was just being a little too nice to Cairo. Beatrick doesn't buy it, and he finally spills the beans. This leads to a huge fight where they both say awful things. Beatrick, completely mad, leaves and says she wants a divorce. Meanwhile, Winnie tells Cairo she might get Jonathan fired. But Cairo sees this as her ultimate victory and even uses it in her college application essay. Cairo explains to Winnie that Jonathan never thought much of her, so this is her way of getting even. Her essay describes the potential consequences of their relationship in detail. Once she finishes writing, that's the end of the story. Turn on alerts, like, and subscribe for more videos similar to this one. Thank you for watching.